Today, I'll be telling you whether the most controversial and, at the same time, the most long-awaited unit, Castorice, is worth pulling for or not. I'll also be discussing about reruns too. But before that, let me introduce to you the best platform for recharging Stellar Jades, LD Shop. On LD Shop, you can purchase Stellar Jades at an extremely cheap rate compared to in-game. Using LD Shop, you can save up to 15% or even more when recharging your Honkai Star Rail accounts. Just for this anniversary patch, there are even 2 limited time offers that allow you to use up all your newly refreshed double top-up chances at an even more insane discount. Today I'll be buying this Jade pack that only costs $43.70 compared to the in-game price of $50. All you need to do is give LD Shop your account UID and region, send your payment, and the Stellar Jades will be sent straight to your account in less than a minute. On top of that, if you recharge up to $80 in a month, you can get a supply pass for free. There's no reason to not use this website. People who say there are risks to doing this are complete idiots that don't know how it works. I swear on my channel's integrity that you will not be banned or scammed. Don't forget to register using my link in the description for an extra 10% off coupon. I hope you would recharge on this website after registering using my link because that's the best way to support my channel right now as YouTube is being a bitch. Anyways, Castorice is another DPS unit releasing in Amphorius, being the second Remembrance limited unit to release. Her performance in MOC alone is pretty good already, enough to put her among the top tiers like the Herda, Zila, Facial, and Aglia. Being an AoE-centric unit, she's able to do stuff like 1 cost 0 cycle Banana Boss, and 3 or 2 cost 0 cycle Flame Reaver. She can even beat the Herda on bosses like Kafka, where she can easily 2 cost 0 cycle, or maybe even 1 cost 0 cycle. There's obviously no need to mention her performance on her shield boss, which I hate with a passion, but even outside of her shield boss, she's doing really good. In Pure Fiction, that's where the gap between her and someone like the Herda shows. She can obviously easily get 40k at an extremely low cost, but she isn't really a unit meant for zero cycling Pure Fiction, but then again, zero cycles aren't even recorded on your profile in Pure Fiction, so it's not that important or much of a demerit. Not being able to zero cycle still shows she's worse at the mode than other AoE-centric DPSs, which is the point. Apocalyptic Shadow isn't worth anything. She'll do good on the one she released on and anything that rewards burning or recovering HP. The closest we had to a universal AS DPS was Facial, but even she falls short on AoE stages. Now that's the gist of her performance in Endgame. You're probably wondering a few things about Castorice, like whether her feats are elevated since she does everything with sustain, or diminished, or why I'm not against her like I was with Fireflop. Well, as to why I don't really hate her like I hate Fireflop, there's really no reason for me to. The community isn't overrating her performance on release. In fact, they're constantly hating on her for global, passive, and whatnot. She was also ridiculously weak in her early beta, which breeds even more hates and doom posting from the community. So it makes her the underdog in this situation, and I'm always on the side of the underdog. Secondly, she's not as brain dead in terms of gameplay as Fireflop. There are skills and levels of depth to her gameplay, despite her team needing a sustain on release just like Fireflop. As to her being locked to one healer on her team no matter what, it's actually a flaw as it limits her ceiling in terms of scaling. But without a limit on gameplay optimizations, she can do much more than Fireflop ever could. And Hoyoverse is even going to sell you a solution the very next patch for her to go sustainless. How kind of them! Totally not trying to break your bank. Outside of being a DPS, if you're using her in another team with another DPS, Castorice being able to heal your team by around half their HP also leads her to being a good substitute for sustained units in some cases. In fact, one might argue you don't need a traditional sustain anymore with her around. Her need for sustain doesn't really apply when she isn't the main DPS. I'm even going to use her as a sustain to zero cycle Polex boss on my live server accounts, so this is actually a good way to use her. I won't even talk about the passive because everyone already knows what it does because of the controversies, but that also boosts her status as an alternative sustain. The only real flaw of casters is not having an F2P option for light cone. Even the Glia had the jellyfish light cone, but that doesn't work on her because her dragon will die a lot. Her to shop Ruins poet sets, and the lesbian light cone buffs attack, not HP, leaving you with the cope option of victory in a blink. But you're better off just using the Bailu standard light cone if you don't have BP or aren't pulling her sig, so that's why I said there's no options. But then again, the damage loss won't be too huge. You'll be doing around 30% more damage with Sig compared to the Bailu cone, so it's not too bad. And if you don't have that, any high base HP cone would have to work. Despite her limited light cone being pretty much a must pull, she makes up for it with her teammates. As they are extremely low cost, even a team consisting of RMC, Pela, and Gallagher would work wonders. And if you don't have Pela available, you can always use the free from May. That's why I think she's actually still cheaper and more F2P friendly than most DPSs, while still having options of premium team with Tribby and Hyacinth who is releasing next patch. It all balances itself out in the end. Now that all the pros and cons are done, for the miscellaneous reasons to pull for her, for one, she is a prettier Zila with visible boobs, so she's above average in terms of looks. And she actually has an achievement tied to her, which is needing her global passive to activate when she's not on the team. So you can't use supports to do that. So in the end, if you ask if she's worth pulling, I'll have to say yes. She has quite a few factors outside of being a DPS that brings up her pull value. Some might be blinded by their hates of the global passive and end up skipping though, but in terms of account improvement, she is one of the better options for sure. As for the reruns, Akron is still good if you want a DPS that isn't greedy and won't steal your supports. Her team can be something like Pela, Diaoqiu, and RMC, or if your casters or Aglia or whoever is already using RMC, you can swap in Bronya instead. She's one of the least greedy DPSs, so if you don't have a second team, you can pull for her. Jiao, on the other hand, is not worth pulling for at all. I said he's part of Akron's team just now, but that won't last. He's definitely ridiculously strong on bosses like True Sting or Hule, and will be the best option on those bosses forever, but those are situational. His amp at E0S0 loses to Pela with Pearl since he has to hold tutorial Lycomb, and on bosses like Nicoror, where the summons don't move, even Tribby is better for E0 Akron over Diaoqiu. In fact, that's the lowest cost zero cycle for her on this boss, and can even be lowered to E0 Tribby, but not Diaoqiu. Which means even the biggest scam of an eidolon, which was Akron's E2, is somewhat good since you don't get penalized for RMC and Tribby on her team. But my next point will show you how Akron's E2 will go back to being a scam soon. Silverwolf getting buffed and Cypher having a non-situational kit which power creeps Pela means the premium team of Akron will be Akron, Silverwolf, Cypher, and either RMC or Tribby or even Bronya, whoever you don't need for the other team. And yes, both Nihilities are stronger than Jiaoqiu. Cypher's kit is confirmed stronger. Silverwolf is still in the works. The last rerun character is Fugue, but Super Break is pretty dead. The only good break DPS, Boothill, is slowly switching to true damage instead. Rappa is situational and pretty broken on the current Kafka side, but she's still mostly a PF unit. I wouldn't invest in Break in this economy. That's all for today. Use my LD shop link for 100 years of good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.